Welcome. I'm Mary Gay George, and we are going to continue on through Artistry at the piano, but we're going to hop, skip, and jump through it because we have 17 books altogether, and we've looked at the introduction to music already. We will be starting with level 1, which is the elementary level, and at each of these 4 remaining levels, we have a series of 4 books. The Workbook, which introduces all new information and activities. The Musicianship book, which I'm showing you mostly because that's what you'll draw on to know what to do with the Repertoire series and the Ensemble series. So we won't be looking at any of those, just the Musicianship and some Workbook peeks. The nice thing that you will find coming into level 1 is that the introduction to music students are ready to go. They can read, they know how to study, they know how to perform, and they know how to use their imagination to make their performances sound wonderful, really. And therefore they learn much more quickly. And it's so encouraging to them and to you as a teacher. Furthermore, built into these books is a 3-week learning plan, and it's very simple and very effective. The first week, they're to have the piece at half of the given metronome speed, and they're to have it with clear phrasing. Without phrasing, we have notes. We don't play notes, we play music, all right? Week 2, we are to have the tempo at 3/4 of the metronome speed, and we're to have more directed motion and much more personal expression. Week 3 is to be perfect and musical the first try. No second tries allowed. If the student needs more than 3 weeks, you will sense that, and you can tell them that you want to give them several more weeks on this particular piece because it has more things in it to accomplish. You don't need to put it out that they need that extra time, but that you give it to most students, and that may be the case. All right, but that plan works very well because they have a definite goal, and of course they're thrilled when they can do it in fewer than 3 weeks. We are looking at Musicianship 1 now, and this is early elementary level. And I want to show you that we have for you general guidelines to help you with assignments. When you start working with new materials, it can be rather confusing. Where do I go and how long do I stay there? So on page 5, I have a very straightforward organizational plan for you. You just start in the workbook and you work in lesson 1 until it's done, and then you go into musicianship and you work in lesson 1 until you're done, and so on, you see. That's very straightforward and it works. You will be comfortable with it. On page 6, we have a more detailed plan which you may grow into. This is the way I actually prefer to teach the books. But you will take an issue from the workbook and then you will apply it, and I show you where it is. In the musicianship book, from there you apply it and I show you where it is in the repertoire book and then the ensemble series. So this way the student has the pleasure really of seeing what they're learning growing under their very fingers right away. You learn it here in the workbook. You can do keyboard patterns and pieces in the musicianship. Then you have your performance pieces in the repertoire, and then the duets in the ensemble book. And that's a very vivid way for them to see how you take an idea and it grows with careful and organized study. So page 6 is a very good page for you. On page 7, we talk about using the metronome, the rate of progress, study guides, and learning to read musically. We did a great deal on that in the introduction to music, but if you're not using the introduction to music, say you have teenage transfer students, they would need to have these paragraphs that start on page 7 and go over to page 8. In conclusion, for centuries, music study has been recognized to be among the most agreeable means of ensuring the individual's total development, not just their fingers, not just reading notes, but it cultivates intelligent thinking. They can feel better coordination of body and mind. They develop powers of concentration and endurance that are both mental and physical. And emotional. And they have psychic and emotional enrichment of a high order that will reward the industrious student of music. I feel everyone has music in them. And we don't want to just say, oh, it's the gifted students that need to have a good program of study. They all need it. All right? Now I want to show you the plan for how the musicianship books work. Each lesson, the first page in that lesson will have a review of what is in the workbook, but it will be presented in a slightly different way and a compressed way. But it will be a review, and use it that way. Then the next thing that happens is we have our rhythm readiness exercises. And these prepare them for all the rhythms that will be in any of their pieces in lesson 1. And they alternate between simple meters and compound meters, always. There's always at least 3 rhythm exercises. Then on the next page we have keyboard patterns. This takes the rhythms, the intervals that are studied, any theoretical concept, and anything that's in their pieces that they will need to have in their fingers. So these keyboard patterns are practiced throughout being in any given lesson. Lesson 1, Lesson 2, Lesson 3, and so on. We also have them change articulations, of course increase their tempo, and I have my students play them in all keys, because that way they're totally at home on the keyboard. So there's always at least 2 keyboard patterns in every lesson, one in simple meter, one in compound meter, one notated in the treble clef, one notated in the bass clef. They play them hands alone at first, and then they play them hands together. Then they have a series of pieces which we call preparation pieces. In the musicianship level 1, they are 2 lines long, but they contain everything that we're studying and putting into musical context. These are really musical pieces. They may be short, but the students love to play these in the informal class situations where we have a performance class once a month in my studio, and they just love to play these shorter pieces. And then also perhaps they will pick the short piece that has the starting with an incomplete measure and has sharps and duplets, and then they'll play the corresponding piece in repertoire that does that in a longer, more glamorous version. That's a great way to perform, you see, because they warm up in the process of doing that. And finally, each lesson ends with a page of ear training. So we also have singing exercises that develop their inner hearing, and these books are very thorough, but also very interesting. Any new rhythm will be signaled. New rhythm with a box around it. Nothing slips by you. All right? So, I also want to show you in this level what happens in level 4. I've shown you what happens in level 1. So you can see the difference when we get to level 4. Look what we are studying. We're studying triads, and we're studying the major triad, the minor triad, the diminished triad, and the augmented triad. And in the workbook, they're going to play these hand over hand, 6 places on the keyboard, non-stop through all the keys. They play a major up and a major down, and they have to plan, and this develops their bi-level thinking. They have to plan while they're coming down what minor will be and start without a hesitation, diminished, and they change the quality of their sound to get the augmented reaching out to the next major, which is C sharp major, and so forth. This, of course, is a major part of their lesson, or I should say major, minor, diminished, and augmented part of their lesson. It's a big undertaking, but an exciting one. And I've noticed that students, more advanced students, want to keep this in their daily warm-up. We study blocked and broken triads. Our singing is singing these major, minor, diminished, and augmented triads, and so forth. We have a new rhythm, which is highlighted, the 3 rhythm exercises, the 2 keyboard patterns, and we have the pieces that get them ready. And these pieces are the Troubadour and In the Dark Forest and A Pleasant Memory and Acrobats, our first pedal piece. No, it's not our first one, but it's a great pedal piece played with broken triads, and our ear training. Musicianship 1 has from page 47 to page 63, I have added a whole set of study guides for you. These guides will help you in teaching because they're all organized and related to the materials that you will be using, and it also shows students how to expand what is on the page. Don't overlook these. You will be using these same kinds of study steps and study guides Well, here's a transposition chart, for instance, which takes care of all of that, and so forth. And then there's study methods, the 5 basic phrase forms, and that's for reading them expressively and composing them. My students do composition. Every week in their assignment, they write a different phrase form, several of them to compare them. And then I have taken all of the pieces that were in Lesson 1 and done an analysis and an interpretive paragraph on each one so that the students see how to do that. The letter plans are very important. And then we have a dictionary and our good old chart that we had in the introduction so that they can review that. All right? So that's musicianship level 1. Level 1 is a great way to begin these processes of seeing a new piece of music, knowing how to work on it, and enjoying the practice procedure that gets you to a polished performance in 3 weeks or less. That is exciting. That is encouraging for the student and for everybody, the family and the teacher. This is a very quick view. I hope that you'll take the opportunity to look at the rest of the information that's in the guided tour right here on the website. Thank you for staying with me.